Welcome back! Today we are doing part 9 of the Heartfelt Wholecloth quilt series. We're going to be working with straight lines as well as circles. For this next section, I'm going to do things just a little bit differently. So if you're following the directions, we're on page 5 and we should be starting step 5, but I'm going to go ahead and skip down and I'm going to do steps 7, 8, and 9. And those are our straight lines to make our hexagon. I feel like this will give me kind of a boundary to put my little circles in for steps 5 and 6. So I'm going to do it that way. And also, since we are getting to the outer layers of this, this quilt, we are having to advance a little bit more frequently. So I'm going to try to do all of the steps on the top half of the quilt today, and then advance it and do all of the steps on the second half of the quilt, and see if that helps save some time. And I'm also going to go ahead and mark my quilt. So I put a little mark with some disappearing ink on the center of my medallion, and now I'm going to measure out from the center. So I've got my center point here, lining up my ruler, lining it up with my existing line. I'm going to come out here to, I'm going to do 18 inches, and that seems to be a good size that will fit around. And yours, like I said in earlier parts of this, your sizes might be a little different, so just do what works for your particular quilt. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and continue and mark. And then I'm going to just draw a line connecting those two, just a light faint line, just so I can keep things kind of lined up, because I don't have a ruler that's long enough to quilt that whole space, so I'm going to have to do kind of sections and shift the ruler and go to the next section. So I'm going to go ahead and mark the rest of the top, and then we'll start stitching that part. And once the whole top section is done, I'll go ahead and do the bottom section. I moved my machine over so that I'm ready to start stitching, and my ruler base is sticking out here because I don't have extra backing on this, which normally I would, but it didn't happen with this one. So here's a little trick for you if you're using the same width of backing as you are for the top. I put these extenders on here. It's just like twill tape or something, and I just pinned it on, and then I can put my clamps on, and then that way the ruler base isn't banging into the clamps and causing me problems. So that's a tip for today. I'm bringing my machine over to that first chalk mark that I made. And I mentioned that I'm going to do the top half first. If you have a machine that has a different throat space, you might need to do it differently. So just do whatever works for you and what machine you have. Okay, now we need a straight edge ruler. So I have got out just the HQ straight edge ruler. It's the longest one that I have. And so I've got Handi grip on it. I'm going to line it up. I'm going to make sure that it's 1/4 of an inch down from the line that I made with the chalk. And then I'm going to go ahead and stitch. Walking my hand with the ruler, keeping pressure where I'm stitching. And I'm going to go ahead and pause right here, shift the ruler up, make sure it's up far enough that I don't have to shift it again, adjust for my 1/4 inch, and continue stitching. Okay, we're going to go across the top doing the same thing. Okay, next step, we are going to echo that straight line that we did with a 3/4 inch echo. Now, when we did I did the crosshatch, I kept saying I was doing 1/2 an inch, but I was actually doing 3/4 of an inch. So if I confused you, I apologize. So for this 3/4 inch, we've already got a 1/4 inch from the needle to the hopping foot. The first line on the stitch is going to make it 1/2 an inch, and the second line will make it 3/4. So I'm going to use this solid line coming across. It's the second line in, and that will give me a 3/4 inch echo. So I'm going to line it up all the way across, bring my machine back over to my, I'm actually going to shift that just a little bit. Bring my foot over so that I'm right on the edge of my centering line. And I'm going to try to stitch slow so that you don't get vibrations from the machine. I was noticing it when I go faster, it gets a little bit crazy for you. So my apologies. Okay, line it back up and we're going to stitch across. Shifting the ruler over, lining it up again with that second line, and I'm going to stitch all the way to my red tape. Pause there, rotate the ruler. Again, using that grid. Those grids are fabulous. Okay, for step 9, we are going to do a 1/4 inch echo, and this should be getting a little bit familiar to you as we've done several echoes throughout this project. So for the 1/4 inch echo, I am going to line the edge of the ruler right up with my previous stitch line. Make sure I've got my handy grip going the right way. Lining the ruler up and stitching away. In our last part, we made these diamond shapes with the circles inside of them, and I wish that I had spent a little bit more time planning out the circles so that they filled the space how I wanted it to. So we're going to go ahead and do some other little circles today. We're going to be on page 5, and now we're going to go back and do steps 5 and 6. So on step 5, we are wanting to do a circle up here above the diamond and below our straight line that we just got done stitching. So I'm going to audition a couple of different rulers or templates, and so I'm going to put that one on there, and it looks like I'm probably going to go over my stitch line. It's just a little bit too close for me. So let's try a different size. So this is a 1 inch circle. And if I allow my 1/4 inch in there, it looks like I will be able to fit that circle in without doing any crossing over. So that's the circle I'm going to use for step 5. And then we're going to do circles in between our crosshatch sections. That's hard to say. So I'm going to actually draw out, let's see, I think I want to do kind of a smaller circle to fit in there, and then maybe do the same size up above, and then do a larger one to fit in between. And this is just a rough drawing. Let's see, it looks like that's probably the size for the smaller circles. That one might be too big. I might have to go with a smaller size. And that is a 1 1/4. So let's try a 1 inch. And that's going to be a little bit smaller, so maybe the 1 1/4 will work. So we'll experiment with those and see what works best. I'm going to start first with my 1 inch circle that I'm going to do on top of the diamond and see how that fits in. Sliding that ruler over. I'm going to go ahead and needle down again just to hold the machine in the position that I want it while I position my ruler. Using the markings again, lining it up with my tape. Let's see how I'm going to do this. So let's stitch it all the way around. So I think it looks pretty good. It's not hitting into my next lines and it's not curving over anything. So I'm going to stick with that size. I'll go ahead and do the others. Okay, now to do the stacked circles, I'm going to go ahead and bring my machine into position. And I'm going to bring the needle back and just make sure that with the ruler in position, when I stitch, I still have my 1/4 inch, so I'm not going to hit any of my stitched lines from before. I'm actually going to just shift it up just a little bit to give myself a little bit more space. Okay, then I'll do a tie off. And then I'm ready to stitch around. I'm going to do 1 1/2 circles and stop on my red line. Change to my next size. Drop the needle, lining up the ruler again. Same thing that we've been doing before. Stitch around. So here's a little tip. If you're doing this tape on yours, I would say do the over stitching on your circles on the side away from the tape so it's easier to get that tape off. So that's my tip for that part. Okay, got the next circle lined up. Okay, and you'll notice that I didn't go all the way up to the line. That is fine. That gives me a little bit of wiggle room for the other sides just in case things aren't lined up just perfectly. So I am happy with that. Okay, there's the circles. I'll go ahead and stitch out the rest and stitch the bottom and we'll see what it looks like at the end. And here it is. I've finished all of the round and we're ready to now move on to part 10.